Hello and welcome back to the Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan. I'm joined by my lovely quadruplet trilogy. There's three of you co-hosts, but we form a quadrilogy.
You could have just said cohort of co-hosts, and that would have been just
Hello.
Like
fine.
I had to make it different this time for some reason. Um,
What
You've done
reason?
too many
We'll never
episodes.
know. We'll never
Just
know.
shaking them up.
it's our Games Club episode. We do one of these every month or two, where we talk about a bunch of games that we all made each other play a bit of, and we say if we like them or not, or if we're gonna keep playing them. That's the entire thing. That's all of it. What?
You haven't seen one of these before? That's it? Come on now.
Come on, go watch
That's
the
it.
backlog. There's like 20 of them.
If you haven't seen our stuff before, you got plenty of content to listen to while you
I think you
close
have
at work.
over 2,000 hours or something like that. It's a huge amount.
2,000 hours of our time. Wow. Really
Not
puts
mine,
things into perspective, doesn't it?
I don't think it's actually that high. Yeah. You know, do the math later. All right, Wyatt, we picked a game,
Yeah.
and we're gonna talk about it.
I did pick a game. I picked Aliens Dark Descent. And I didn't know what I was getting into with this one. Okay, I was a foolish man, and I was like, I know what's up with aliens. This will be fine. I'm sure it'll be a little scary, a little spooky, but it'll be fine. This game accesses certain uh, parts of my brain that causes anxiety that I did not think were possible. This game literally has an anxiety mechanic. It has a whole system where you have to manage your squad's anxiety, and you feel like they do. It's been a while since I played a game where you feel so connected to the character or characters that you're controlling. It's nuts. Basically, it is a I don't even I don't even know what kind of genre it is. It's like squad
Tactical.
tactics,
I don't know.
tactical squad.
It feels like squad tactics is a good
Thing. Yeah,
determiner.
you control four of the colonial marines. You're set into this giant kind of objective area, this giant map, and you're given a list of objectives that you have to complete. There's some side objectives. There's some collectibles. There's gear to pick up along the way, and you have to manage your troops' stress levels, their health, their ammunition, all of their equipment. Um, and you also have to either fight or evade aliens at the same time. Um, which picking a fight with them is not always the correct decision because they will be alerted to your presence, and the longer you stay alerted to them, the more aggressive and more difficult they become. Which is why they have a system where you can basically extract mid-mission and come back to it if you want. Which I will say, when I learned that was a thing, that did help quite a bit. Knowing that you didn't have to do the whole thing in one run, that was actually quite nice. Yeah, super interesting. I have never played a strategy game or strategy adjacent game that feels this much like a survival horror game. It's like it rides that line right down the middle of those two genres. It's
It's also
fascinating.
way higher like production than I was expecting from a squad
Yeah.
tactics game.
Yeah,
Like there's a lot of
Absolutely.
care taken with presentation and story, at least in the
Yeah,
start.
I
Absolutely.
really feel like this game flew under people's radars.
Mhm. It
Probably
did for
just
me.
like
Did for
it
me.
doesn't, not a ton of people are into that kind of like tactics game.
There's just
I
not
think
many
that
of them.
like
Yeah,
a
it's a very small
tie-in
genre.
game is already kind of a red flag. I think people like Alien enough that people like Alien Isolation.
Plus,
I
there's
don't
been
know if
enough
they
good
didn't like.
Aliens games as well. There's been some stinkers, but there's also a pretty
Yeah,
good history of Alien games.
I think
We've
it's a
played one
little
of them
bit.
on stream.
Yes, we have.
It's been a
That one
little
was right
bit
down the
hit or
middle.
miss
Yeah.
in recent years, but like I don't know why this one kind of flew under the radar. I'm a big Alien fan, so
I can give a theory, and it's the reason why it flew under my radar is because when I think of an Alien game, this like genre on paper is not what I initially would have wanted for an Alien game. I didn't know at the time like how stressful this game can be and how scary it actually is. But I think if you're trying to pitch someone on a squad tactics kind of strategy game for an aliens game, it seems kind of weird at first, and so I think a lot of people like myself just was like, whatever, not my thing. But if you actually look more into it, you look at gameplay, you look at people talking about it or describing it, it actually is a lot more true to the franchise, I
And I would say
think.
I played a lot of Alien games. This is the most alien-y feeling Alien game that I
Yeah.
think I've ever played.
It's
Really?
very it's
I
very Aliens, because again,
Yeah.
there's that kind of distinction between, like, if you're
mhm.
talking Alien, it's horror. If it's Aliens, it's kind of like action horror or like action thriller. And this is a great Aliens experience, if that's what you're looking for. Absolutely.
Yeah. I also really
This one
appreciate
made
voice acting's really good, too.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
is the all the sound work is really good.
Man,
Um,
any game that uses an alien style motion tracker in this kind of setting immediately makes that game better. It is so thematic, but so scary and
it's also just
stressful,
like a
and they
good
got the
video
sound
game
just right. Yeah,
Like it just works
absolutely.
really well as a video game thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like in this game
Did
too, you
you?
can like set down like semi-permanent trackers in spots to sort of like watch a zone like you think aliens might be coming from and stuff.
Mhm.
You guys? So I, God, I loved the environment art and the clutter
Mhm.
and just detail put
You
into every
nailed it.
level because
You
they're,
nailed it.
oh my God, they're handcrafted and they absolutely feel it. What do you guys think of the character designs? Did you? I kept feeling like they were somewhere between stylized and realistic.
I feel like if
Yeah.
you're in gameplay, I think it's totally fine. In cutscenes, they're a little rough. They
I
look
think
a
they're
Yeah.
little
definitely meant to look
strange.
better for gameplay than for cutscenes, but they look good
Yeah.
enough for the
I
cutscenes.
feel
Yeah.
like
Like it
a lot of
definitely
this
still feels
game was
modern.
designed with the gameplay in mind, and it kind of feels like the story was, I don't want to say tacked on because I like the story and it that
Mhm.
has kind of a negative connotation, but I definitely think that they spent a lot of time crafting how they wanted the game to play and then built the story around
Yeah.
sort of that kind of, to fit in between the gameplay basically.
Yeah, because it can be difficult to create a story for a strategy game. A, just because of the type of game that it is, it doesn't always have that same kind of emotional connection to the player as like a third person shooter or an action game would be, for example. But then you also have to you're designing assets to be seen from really like a bird's eye view, right? So they're not going to be highly, super highly detailed, but then you have to recreate models again, but this time much higher detail for cutscenes. um,
I just want
which is always tricky.
to say, just in terms of like the environment art and the camera perspective and everything, I thought that this game did a great job of working with like light and shadow in that
Mhm.
top down environment
Absolutely.
where you have to kind of sweep around with your flashlight to be able to see in some of the really dark areas.
I love that feature. It's very thematic,
Mhm.
and it also has utility as well, which is really nice. It's not just there just to look cool.
Yeah, I this game, I can't remember if I gave it any awards or just a shout out in my game of the year picks.
You gave it something.
I think it technically came out in 2023, but I did not play it then. And I think part of that for me was first off just how unique it felt, and then how surprising. Like I wouldn't think of this kind of game as being immersive, but I felt super connected and immersed
Yeah.
just
What
because
I
of the
helps
agree.
is
amount of
that
Yeah.
effort in the audio, in the
The UI
environment,
too
and
is like
yeah,
super feels very appropriate to aliens.
it's very like VHS, like lo-fi, kind of CRT looking stuff, which is great.
I
And
also
I think what helps with the immersion too is that you're not taking on the perspective of the Marines. You're taking on the perspective of this like mission handler, this like person who's kind of overseeing all the missions. And I think, and I know some strategy games do that, but I think that that tends to help with the immersion because you definitely feel like you're someone commanding the units rather than like trying
Yeah,
to
I agree with you.
put yourself in the shoes of those Marines.
It gives you like a
and
gameplay
and just
conceit for what you're doing.
yeah, just
Exactly.
for context for people who haven't played the game, there's kind of like an XCOM like mechanic in when you're deploying for missions, you're picking what soldiers go on the mission, and they might not make it out. You
Yeah.
might have another one in the next mission to fill their spot,
Mhm.
and sometimes you
Yep.
lose a really good character who was with you for many levels and leveled up a lot, and then he gets eaten by an alien queen or something.
Or dragged away. That was the creepiest part, is that they actually bothered to have like aliens incapacitate your
Hmm.
guys and then drag them away, which is
Oh
kind of
no.
scary.
Oh God,
Um,
I've had some of the, I don't know how far you guys played, but some of the later levels get pretty intense, and there's
mhm,
been times it's just been like back and forth where I'm like fighting off a wave of aliens, somebody gets dragged away, I have to like chase after trying to get them back,
mhm.
step too far into like the alien hive, rescue the guy, back up, and then do it all over again because somebody else got grabbed.
Oh, I just got flanked and completely demolished.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Another cool thing is that if you have a heavily injured marine and they can't even like stand or walk, you can pick them up in like a fireman's carry and carry them back to the ark, your little like your extraction area basically, which again super thematic and super cool, especially because you kind of grow attached to certain marines after you level them up because they're all given names too, which just adds to that like connection that you
Very
have with them.
XCOM-y.
Very XCOM. And so it's cool that you can just pick them up and like slowly carry them back to the like extract zone, which is a lot of fun. And again, super thematic.
and two, I've had it where at the end of a mission, I think it was like some like boss fight kind of mission, that like I had one injured guy left, and I'm just
Oh,
like limping. Literally, my one guy is limping back to the extract, and I'm just like, please, please let that last fight have been the last one.
Yeah. It's it's so cool how many like unique stories that you can make within a mission. Like it's one of those like water cooler talk kind of games where you can kind of as the saying goes, create your own story and your own adventures and stuff. But like genuinely, this is a great example of that because the sandbox is so it gives you so many different options to
Yeah,
take
you
so
can
many different routes
approach.
and look for like tech and ammo and different ways to interact with all of your marines and stuff. It's super cool.
I think there is some levels have some level of randomization too. Not a ton. I think it's pretty handcrafted, but I think some of the enemy behavior or like when and where some of the enemies are spawning gets a little randomized at times.
I do
Not
love how
certain on it.
they'll have aliens like walk into the same building as you and walk around, and you're like trying to hide, and you're constantly watching the motion tracker, and you're never quite sure if they're going to stumble into your room or not. And so sometimes they just walk into the same building, they get very close, and then they walk away. It's perfect. It's like sometimes it's just there to build tension, and and the tension doesn't always break,
Yeah, this
which is
is the
fantastic.
kind of scare you get out of this game is like there isn't I can't think of any like jump scares. It's
No,
just sort of like a lingering dread and anxiety of knowing like you have to complete these objectives
which
and there's going to be struggle.
Which again is very Alien. Like Aliens is very much like atmosphere and tension. Like especially that first movie. It's like it's the secret sauce is just like the tension is just handled so well. And for a video game with like AI enemies and those set up jump scares with like kind of patrol patterns, it works incredibly well. Even from like a really zoomed out perspective, you think that would kind of disconnect you from the horror that's going on, but it doesn't at all because it's still super immersive.
I don't want to spoil any story plot too, but there's eventually into the game in the story that there's some cutscenes with a like a villain character, and I after the cutscene I'm just like, what the fuck was that? And what the fuck am I about to see? Like I thought we were fighting the bad stuff already, and now
No,
then
it's
I'm
gonna get
like,
worse.
Oh
what
God.
could be coming?
a new enemy faction.
Oh God. The predators show up.
Yeah. Now you gotta
Nice.
fight both.
I will say, in terms of things that I wasn't a huge fan of, I had a moment and I was complaining about this to Ryan. I was ranting for like 2 hours because I got really
Oh my
pissed.
god.
During the first mission, you have to extract a bunch of survivors from this town, right? And when you find a survivor, you like add them to your squad, and then they kind of walk around with you. The thing about this game is that you don't control units individually; they control as one as like a squad. So you can't hit a specific unit and then tell him to go over there, and then tell her to go over there. They move as in unison, which is kind of nice because then there's less fuffing around with trying to like group up everyone and get them in
That's
specific spots.
something
For the most part,
I
it's fine.
really enjoyed as someone
Yeah,
who
it gets rid of
hates
the micromanagement.
RTSs.
Which for the most part I like. there's one specific moment where it really got under my skin. There's a moment where I'm extracting someone, right? And I'm going on this like bridge that's suspended upwards, right? So it's just like you're outside, but you're on this bridge going from building to building. There's a moment where you're walking across, and then it's a scripted moment. Two aliens pop up on either side of the bridge and attack you. And because you can't control anyone, the survivor that I'm trying to protect as much as possible just runs up in front and starts shooting them. And so that's the target that the aliens first attack. And so I'm trying to protect this guy, and I can't put him behind the other Marines that are supposed to protect him. He just runs wherever he wants. And so if you're trying to like protect someone, it's really, really frustrating that you can't tell him in any way, at least as far as I know, to just get behind the other Marines.
Maybe
He just
accurate
kind
to
of
the
runs out
movies,
there.
but
That doesn't
I
mean it
don't
makes
remember
it
that
fun.
specifically, but
Maybe it was just something that I ran into, but it was a very specific moment, and I even like reloaded a save from like a checkpoint just to see if it was like a random event or not, and it wasn't. It was scripted, and so it's like I tried 2 or 3 different times just to see if I could like do it. And you really have to like run forward, trigger the event, and then like run back as quickly as possible, and then maybe you get like a 50-50 chance that this guy ends up behind the other Marines. It was just like kind of frustrating.
if I'm thinking about the same place you were, I think in my game I might have had a turret there.
Well, that
But I
I
could
would
be
have done
mixing up.
it.
It's been a while since I played the intro of this game, I'll be honest. I
That's
was at
fair.
this game a while ago and I just kind of revisited for this.
That's fair. That's the only like really big gameplay issue that I came across.
I did find that I thought the gameplay was pretty like friendly. Like the actual interaction was like fairly easy to understand and did what
felt
you wanted most
really
of the
similar
time.
to me to I don't think anyone else here has played the Shadow Tactics or Shadow Gambit.
I've played them just a little bit.
Yeah, I really like Gambit. I really like the rest of those games, but I haven't finished any of them aside from actively playing through Gambit a lot more. This reminds me of that, but almost less like micromanagey, because you're not hand moving everyone and like setting up these like really specific timed sequences that you are in those games. And I think this was fun. I do think it got the lingering dread got my anxiety up
Yeah,
in a way
There,
that I think I need to be in a mood for this game. I think I have to be like
Absolutely.
in the attitude
yeah, that was
for this type
this
of
was also
thing.
part of the reason I didn't spend a ton of time with this. Besides the fact that I've put a lot of time in this before, was just like I was like I'm not ready for this right now. But yeah, I do feel like to me this game is, even when I was like super into it, had like a time limit before I needed to break.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. There's like a building, almost my own like anxiety dread gauge going up, and I'm like, oh, now I gotta go take a walk or something. I can't really keep
Yeah, I think I
doing
played
this for
this
too long.
a good bit like last year before I started my new job when I was unemployed, and so I was just like playing it a whole bunch. But there was like definitely like times where it's like I gotta go make lunch. I gotta
I just
not.
gotta get out of there.
yeah. I think if you're someone who gets easily stressed, especially by strategy games, not don't avoid this one because it is very, very well made for what it is. But just go in knowing that it's going to be very
Also,
stressful and
much
sometimes
easier to
unforgiving.
manage than most other RTS style games.
Yes.
You
Which
say much
Yeah,
easier to
there's
manage. Still very hard for someone like me.
It can be stressful.
there's
I will
only
say-
one unit you
I
have
will
to
say,
focus on.
I will
though.
say, I was able to complete the tutorial my second time through.
I also died in the tutorial, Alex. So you're not alone.
I think I
Oh,
died.
thank
Okay.
God!
Okay, if I had any other complaints, that fucking stealth section in the tutorial
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
It sucks,
the
dude.
problem with that section is you don't have a motion tracker, so you don't know where it is if you lose sight of it, and then it just
Did you-
spots you from across the room and kills you instantly. if
Yes.
you're-
Did you guys
Oh
play
my
this on
God,
controller
yes.
or mouse and keyboard? Was this meant for a certain?
I did mouse
I
and
played on
keyboard.
keyboard and mouse.
Okay, I did mouse and
Yeah.
Yeah,
keyboard
Seemed
too.
fine.
I did.
I felt like I kept confusing. I felt the
Okay.
controls hard to grasp for some of those commands.
It
Yeah,
does
I
help
did
that you can really slow things
the
down.
cover command was finicky for me. The like
Yes.
clicking both mouse buttons in
Mhm.
was a little awkward. And for some reason it seemed to like not register sometimes, but
Also, this must have been my fault, but I felt like the cover mechanic is there because you can hide from aliens, which is a nice feature because sometimes you want to stealth and don't want to aggravate them. Was anyone else caught in a position where they're in a room and an alien is nearby and there's never actually any cover to go into? The one room that doesn't have any cover to hide behind is the one time the alien actually walks in. That was always my fucking experience where it's like,
Yeah,
go into this room, there's cover everywhere, and I, grab whatever and it's fine. The one room I go into where there's no fucking cover is the one time they decide to walk in.
I definitely felt like from what I played of the game, it was more often I was fighting the aliens than avoiding the aliens.
Yeah.
I mean, like if I had to avoid an alien, it was like an all out like it can't be in the same room as me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very rarely was I advantageous enough to hide behind a box or something.
yeah, I get the impression, having not played nearly as much as you have, Alex, that you're not necessarily meant to just avoid everything in this one. It seems like part of the intent is that
it's a
you are meant to
mix.
kind of try to find an advantageous situation and take them out.
There are a lot of missions later where there is like no way to avoid things. And there's also some missions later where there is no way in hell you can go through the level without avoiding things.
Yeah, stealthing through
So
things isn't necessarily an option all the time.
yeah, there's some spots where it's very obvious that it needs to be a stealthy situation, and I think even the characters had said so, or it's very heavily implied. And but you're in a small enough room that like it's easy, you know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of portions of the game where it's either or, but mostly I think it's more focused on the killing them than avoiding them. I think the big things in avoiding them too is to like maybe kill a few stragglers and then start sealing off areas so they can't come in.
Yeah, I do like one thing the tutorial was cool seeing is that it looks like they went out of their way in this tutorial to contextualize things that you might want to do later that they don't want to expressly call out. Where they're like, "Oh, you can weld doors shut," and like they're not going to ask you to directly do that after this first one, but that's like probably going to come in quite handy later on. I
Yeah, there
imagine in
have
a
been
number of places.
there have been like times in
I'll
that
seal
game where
myself off in a room and stop playing.
there is you can like later there's times where like you can seal yourself in a room and like short rest basically for those who play D&D.
Mhm.
And there's been times where I have like sealed up like every corridor in a little area, and then so I'm like, okay, this is like my temporary base, and I'm gonna like have to come back and forth from this room. I'm just gonna rest here. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go like kill the guys in the left room and get the stuff from there. Then I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna seal it back up. I'm gonna rest again.
And they give you the tools to like I said, that one of the coolest parts of this game is how interactive the sandbox is and how many options you have. Because just the fact that it gives you the tools for that is so interesting. Because you can like, okay, I'm going to seal off all the doors. I'm going to set up a couple of turrets. I'm going to set up some motion trackers. Like this is my safe space. I run here if I'm in deep shit, basically, which
I
is
don't
which is
know
really fun.
if it's. I think it's not unlocked at the beginning, but eventually too you can like upgrade your motion trackers, and maybe it is in the beginning. So remind me if I'm wrong. You can upgrade the like deployable motion trackers so that they can attract.
I think that's in the tutorial for the
Okay, is
motion
it?
tracker. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, because that one I found to be a little buggy. Sometimes it didn't attract him. I was not quite sure when it was supposed to be used, but I had a few times gotten it to be really advantageous if there's a lot of aliens around. I I
Mhm.
activate one that's a little far off, and most of them go running away to see what's up with it.
That's cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a fun mechanic. Um, and yeah, I didn't play too much past the tutorial because this game stressed me out quite a lot.
It's
And I
a
was like, I
long
gotta.
I
tutorial.
was gonna say the
Yeah,
tutorial's
It's
pretty lengthy too.
long.
I
yeah,
played a bunch of this game like earlier in the month and then I had to take a break for a while because it was becoming too much.
But something else I gotta call out too is the thing that I really like sold me on the game was like in the first room before you even do anything, like before you know that there's an alien on this like space station. You can like walk to the front and then you see the entire station below you from the outside. They like nailed what a space station should look like in a top-down perspective, I think, and that was super cool. Because you can see like they make sure you actually see all the outside bits and like the alien inspired design of the spaceship and whatnot.
Yeah.
The most powerful weapon in that game is the car.
Yeah.
Oh, the arc is incredible. It will also really piss off the aliens to a point where they'll get real aggressive real quick, but it is a excellent get out of jail free card for sure.
At least for a little while.
Yeah.
All right. So, any other thoughts on Dark Descent? Are anyone going to keep playing this? Is this like a?
Oh,
I don't know
I'm
if
going
I
to come
have
back
the
to it eventually.
I don't know if I have the ability to keep playing this.
I'm kind of with you, Wyatt. I suspect I'll come back to this for Halloween or something. I think this will be
I
a
really
good
want
like.
to, because it's excellent. Really well made. I'm glad that we're still getting good Aliens games. You know,
I've heard the
thank
VR
God.
game's pretty good. I
And
wanted to
good
check
squad
it out.
tactics.
I have heard
games.
that actually.
I have a copy, and then I realized it's a little too fancy for my computer, so
Oh, did it pull an Indiana Jones on you?
I didn't get that far.
Oh,
All right.
I
Go ahead,
think my
Alex.
one last thing is just it came out a few years ago, and I'm really curious and looking forward to see what this developer does next.
Mm-hmm.
If it'll be another
Yeah.
Alien game or what else. I think it's a really unique game, so I'm kind of curious to see what they do next. Hopefully it's just
I'd
as
agree with
unique.
that.
Yeah.
I think I'd be I'm eagerly awaiting what comes out next. The studio I think hasn't done much else.
We're
Indie
doing
studio.
a little.
So
We're doing a little.
yeah,
Who are
very
these
very
people?
cool to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, moving on, Wyatt. What is your next pick?
Yeah. I'm picking something that I feel like I always see on Game Pass, and I've just never taken the plunge, even though it looks kind of
The
interesting.
deep dive.
Yeah, a little bit of a deep dive. We're going with Overthrown, which looks like some sort of.
This was my alternate game last month.
There you go.
Huh.
There you go. So looks like a co-op third-person city builder with some like third-person combat going on. It looks interesting.
I've been
And-
very
and it-
eagerly awaiting this game. I think this
And
is
I
just
like the
like
art
the early
style.
version, but I definitely want to play more or play it.
And this will
Cool,
be
great.
our multiplayer game that I'm sure we'll do a stream of in the future.
Wonderful. All right. So I'm gonna ask who wants to go next. Either of Alex's, I can jump in.
I'll jump. I'll go.
Okay, let's get
Unless somebody
Homestead
has
Arcana.
strong feelings. So yeah, I picked Homestead Arcana. It's sort of a little, I don't know, survival crafting.
It's like a
Farming
cozy
game.
crafting witch game.
Yeah, I thought it was
sort
going to
of.
be a bit cozier than it is.
Yeah, it kind of turns into. Alex mentioned when we were talking earlier that it felt kind of roguelike-y to him. I'm like, I understand why.
Yeah.
The main
I
thing
don't
that
know
set
if
that
I.
off for me was dropping stuff when you die.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't even know if I'd super call it roguelikey in the fact that I didn't feel like I was dying that much, but I did die really easily at one point.
Yeah.
Because I have no offensive spells yet. I don't know how far in the game you get those, but
I wasn't even aware there was like combat or anything. To be
I
honest
don't know,
with you.
but there's no way I have to deal with the enemies besides avoid them.
Interesting.
But yeah, so you play as like a witch, and you sort of have a base you set up, and then from there you explore other areas. Most of the other areas I've found are through something called the miasma, which is basically I don't know, a death fog. You go in there, you take constant damage.
Classic,
a mask that lets you
you got to get into the
breathe
Fortnite
for a little bit.
zone exclusion.
You got a gas mask. It's Call of Duty. I don't know.
Got to get through Fortnite to play the game. Yeah.
Oh god.
Crazy. It just has all of Fortnite in it.
What do
as
you
a
mean I
level.
need to win a battle royale to start farming my vegetables?
So then through there you explore further and further as you sort of upgrade your mask and everything. And come back and upgrade your base and then sell what you grow, either use or sell what you grow and continue building your base. I don't know anything further than that. There seems to be a bit of a story going on about what you're discovering through the miasma and the connection to the main character's aunt.
Yeah. I play a lot of games like this. I am absolutely a huge fan of cozy farming games. I love Rune Factory. I love Stardew Valley. I love Animal Crossing. I love all of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a lot of experience in this genre.
Yeah, I love My
And,
Time. The My Time games are really good. I think, and I also want to specify, so I did some digging into the developer of this game, Serenity Forge, as well. I like Serenity Forge games. I think they've made some other really cool things that I do like.
Haven't even.
They also publish lots of games that I love. So I know I've talked about a bunch. Slay the Princess on this podcast. Slay the Princess, the
They
definitive
did Slay
edition.
the Princess?
They didn't develop it, but they published it. Slay the Princess is made by like a duo, artist-writer duo. But they've published a ton of really cool stuff.
Oh man, they did Doki Doki.
I don't think they
way.
made Doki Doki. I think they published
it again?
Um,
They're a good publisher.
yeah, there's lots of good stuff here. There's
Know
some
how to
stuff
pick
that I
'em.
really like. The King's Bird, I think, is a really fun game.
Lisa.
That one I
Yeah,
haven't
okay.
heard of.
Yeah, there's
there's a
lots of
lot
cool stuff
in
that they're involved with. I think this is probably one of their. I don't want to say worst because I do think there are people that will really like this game. I think there's a lot that there is to like here.
I didn't hate this game.
I also don't
think
want to
the-
say basic or weakest, but I would say basic.
It just there's a
in
lot of
The amount
small
there.
errors in the general control of the game that I am.
Yeah, it felt a little weird control wise. I also just felt like it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I don't know what I was looking for, but I was kind of like, oh, this isn't quite it.
For me,
Now that's really subjective, but
yeah. For me, there were some individual things that I thought were really cool. I liked how analog,
Yeah.
like picking plants and stuff.
I did
Mhm.
love that. I like the magic for
Oh,
plants
yeah,
and stuff.
and-
All that seems
I
really
think
cool.
And
all of-
pruning the
I don't-
different parts too if they grow too big.
Yeah, all of that was neat, but I just none of it coalesced into something that held my attention for very long.
It also is just really
Yeah.
bad at tutorializing. I think there's a bunch of stuff that it kind of throws a
Mhm.
pop-up at you about and then immediately vanishes. I don't know if anyone else found these. I had no quest markers for anything, which I get is probably part of the design, but at the same time, it'll be like, oh, go talk to Huckleberry, your cat, who normally stays by you, but then he'll run over to the corner of this area for something, and then he'll like send you to go do something, but doesn't actually tell you exactly where it is, and there's not really like a line to it. Specifically, like the mail piece tutorial was awkward for me. 'Cause
Oh,
I had
yeah,
to,
the
like,
mail
figure
was
out
kinda
where to
weird.
go for that.
I had a weird moment where it was when you pick up the explosives to get rid of like the purple crystals,
Mhm.
right? You walk out of the miasma, you have the crystals, or wherever you get the crystals, I forget. And Huckleberry tells you to go east, and you're like, oh, okay. Or no, he tells you to go north. So you're like, oh, okay. I don't really remember anything north, and I may have misheard what was happening. But if you go back north, you basically walk up the path to where you start.
Because you actually
And I
need
was
to go
like-
northwest along
Well,
a
that's the
western
thing. He just says
pathway.
north. So
He
so
says
it's like-
north.
it's
Your
not-
quest marker says, or your quest like text says west.
Yeah.
But I did the exact same thing you did. I like went way past, tried to look for it at the top, and I was like, wait, where? This has to not be the right thing. And so I went
I
back
literally
and like, found
only
the most
found
western
it-
way I could go.
because I went in like the gamer brain direction, and I was like, well, it's telling me to go over there, so let me see what's over here just
Yeah.
in case there's anything. And then I went, oh, this is where it wanted me to go, I think. And I was like, well, let me blow this up. I hope it doesn't let me blow this up, and there be another thing that is required, and I can't get the item back.
Yeah.
But then that was where I was supposed to go.
Yeah. I think really this is just... I do think there is something here if you're already a fan of this genre and you're looking for
really
more. This is a pretty
stylistically
decent
like this game.
version. Stylistically, it's really good looking, I think. Like
I
the
actually had
the
an
art style is
issue-
cool.
I actually had an issue with the art style, and Based on the fact that you guys liked it, I don't think anyone's going to agree with me. But
Well,
I
it
felt
depends on
like
what part, because I was gonna lead into problems.
I was gonna say
the lighting felt very flat.
Yeah,
That's
It
true.
felt
There
like
was
there was
times
a
I
lot of it was like
There's
flat and
that.
unmotivated and like it just made everything look uglier than it could have been, if that makes sense.
What was the I guess I can't say that because that would dox where we went to college.
yeah. I remember
Oh.
this show started as a college project for for a course there, so we've mentioned
I
it
was gonna
before.
say I may have doxed.
Or-
We've definitely mentioned
Yeah,
the
before.
college that we've gone to before. I'll not do it again. You can dig if
But
you want
this-
to find out. But yeah, it felt like a game development college project, like a polished one that released.
Yeah,
but
it
it
this
did
felt
feel
like
like
a
exactly
very
like the
indie.
art style you would see for one of the senior games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely,
A sort of flat,
I'm
cel-shaded
actually-
color with some painterly environment stuff going
which
on.
is a style that I
kind of
love. Like I do like the style a lot. I think their character
It's classic.
art
It's comfy.
lacked a lot of light. Like it seems like the light. I think that's probably on the lighting and not
Honestly,
the actual
the
character.
character-
art, but
The character art was like my least favorite part, other than the lighting. I just
Oh,
felt
really,
like
I
they were
liked the
very.
character.
They felt
I think they were. I felt they were like 90% of the way to it looking really good,
Fair
and
enough.
they
that
felt
last
unfinished.
10%.
It felt very basic.
I think that my opinion is changing on it as we speak about it, because I didn't realize this came from Serenity Forge. I thought this was like a first time dev or something.
Mm.
Yeah, this is like a. This is why it's weird to me because I think Homestead is like Serenity. I should check how far back this is in their library. In 2023.
Is this also an early access game? I
Think
kind of
so.
got that vibe from it.
No, it's not. But I agree
Oh,
with that.
okay.
So my like biggest I think problem with this is overall it just felt unpolished and I would say unfinished. It was
You know
missing
what
that like
bugged
final
me?
pass.
I couldn't jump.
Yeah, you can't jump.
It's
And I mean,
Oh yeah.
I know that I guess maybe that's part of the level design, but there was times where I had to walk around something that
There's also like invisible
small.
walls on a lot of the like pathways that you have to go through and whatnot that feel really awkward.
it kind of prevents you from exploring, which I feel like this game does want you to do, is to like kind of explore these areas, figure out what plants are where, so you know kind of like what materials to pick up where. But when there's tons of it of like invisible walls, there's a whole path. I don't know if anyone ran into this, but in that first area, because there's kind of a loop, right? It's where you go down and you pick your apples and stuff.
Yep.
If you go a little bit further past that, past where like the metal plants are, there's that kind of
Yeah,
like there's that
loops back.
stone pillar with that one tree on it. There's a whole pathway you can take to the right, but it is not labeled as a pathway at all. It's like covered by brush, and it just looks like there would be another invisible wall there.
Oh, I missed
And
that entirely.
that's what I'm saying, is that like there's so many invisible walls that it kind of trains your brain to not really explore the environment that much. But there's this whole other path with like with plants and stuff that like you can't get anywhere else in that area. And it's like I'm okay with hidden areas that you kind of have to explore for, but for a game that has so many invisible walls, it feels like it kind of prevents you. It
Yeah,
kind
it
of
also-
de-incentivizes you from doing that.
When everything else that I experienced the game was pretty clear where you could and couldn't go.
Yeah.
And it was pretty clear about like, here's a wall. You're definitely going to need something to open this up.
Yeah.
Whether you know what it is yet or not. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate this game. I don't know if I'll continue playing it. I know.
And like I said, I really enjoyed the like picking things off of plants, because you go over and you hit a button and it
Mhm.
shifts to almost like a first person view, and you walk around the plant and look up and down, and you have to literally like click and drag things off of the branch,
Mhm.
which felt cool. It kind of reminded
Yeah.
me of picking
Yeah.
plants in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which was one of the coolest mechanics in that game, in terms of like how you pick it, in what direction, how forceful you are, can kind of change the like rarity of the material that you pick, which is kind of interesting. Here's the problem with that though. One, actually walking around the tree felt very awkward to me.
Mhm.
It felt very
Yes.
like clunky and
It also,
and
to me,
strange.
like, did not feel like at first I didn't realize that was even possible.
Yeah, they did
It
not
wasn't clear.
communicate it to you very well. The second thing I ran into, what what did you guys play with? Keyboard and mouse or controller?
Both. Because
Keyboard and
I
mouse.
tried to
I
play
played
with a
keyboard and mouse.
controller and it didn't work.
Okay,
Ooh.
that's the other thing. Picking
Hmm.
plants off of trees with a controller feels like shit.
So for me,
Feels
what broke
awful.
was I could not. There's a bit where you like channel magic into your plants to make them grow. It's very cool.
Mhm.
On keyboard and mouse, it feels very good. It's like a cool
Yeah.
interaction thing. Controller, I could not move the cursor. I just couldn't do it. So
I
there
ran
was
into
no
a
way to do
similar
that
issue.
mechanic on a controller. And there's a UI
Yeah, and that's
for
where
it. Like there's full UI for the controller. So I don't know if like something it just
that's
didn't
where I was
work
kind
with
of
the
feeling
controller
like
I
this
had or
felt
what.
kind of early access. In fact, I kind of thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to specify that like I like some of the other games that Serenity Forge has done, like the Lifeless Planet and Lifeless Moon games, which are very cool. Specifically, Lifeless Moon. I think Lifeless Planet is very dated at this point. But Lifeless Moon is very cool, and I think those are probably a better spend of your time than this. If you're really stretched for a cozy witch-themed um, exploration game, this is probably gonna fit the bill.
I
But
know.
You
I
could
don't-
also play Wildflower.
yeah, like Wildflowers, I think is probably a better take on this exact concept.
I
Basically,
know I've seen
I would could
some
also
other
say
games.
if you're getting kind of tired of like the typical cozy farming game structure, I think there's enough additions here where I think if you're into that genre but you're getting a little tired of the typical trappings of it, I think this has some really interesting twists again in terms of like foraging for things. I did think the like messenger raven system was kind of interesting and how it doles out lore and information about characters from the town and stuff. I thought all that was really neat. So I think for people who are looking for a very different uh, kind of approach to like a cozy farming game, I think there's a lot to get out of it for sure.
Yeah, I think this is good enough that if it's your thing, give it a try. Especially like if it's a Game Pass game, I think it's worth trying if you think you might like it. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I think if I want to explore this kind of game again, I might check out Reka, which is like
I would also heavily recommend. I think the closest comparison, it's not witch themed to this, but a good close comparison is probably My Time at Sandrock. I think is by far the best like comparable game that you can play,
I've heard
or
good
one of the
things
Rune
about
Factory
those.
games, but those are both a little older. My Time at Sandrock is a really really fun like cozy game with a lot more actiony stuff, and about the same amount of exploration that I think is just like a way more polished experience. Right. Anyone gonna keep playing this aside from Alex? I know Alex already mentioned, but
No, I don't think so.
I
I had
made
my fun twisting fruits off of plants.
yeah,
it is a
I
cool twisting mechanic, legitimately.
Yeah, it's neat. The it's like very involved. Like I said, it's very analog. I like how you can like the various magic spells require like gathering these little wisps and then like following this circle along a particular stalk in order
I
to
Yeah.
kind
make
of
it
wish
grow more.
I wish more of the crafting had that kind of interaction, but it
I
doesn't.
agree because the crafting felt not super satisfactory. I also do the one thing that kind of set me off at the start of this game immediately is that if you hit B on a controller at any point in character creation, it goes back to the main menu and wipes everything you did,
Ooh,
Oh my god.
which it does tell you at the bottom of the screen, but that's a unfortunate key binding to go for out the gate. But yeah, I do think this game is a little underbaked, and I don't think
that's how it
it's
felt
really
to me
getting
as
more
well.
updates.
I liked it enough, but I don't think I'll return. At least not much. Maybe if
All right.
I'm in the mood.
You can finish your thought, Alex. I'm just going to toss it to you to
That's
pick your next Game Pass game. So
pretty much it. It's better for our time to move on. I think I'm gonna pick an old one, one near and dear to. Well, actually, you know what?
Oh,
I'm
I don't
looking
know what.
here.
Please
I'm looking
continue.
here. I'm already starting this game. I'm gonna change my pick here. I am gonna pick Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader.
Very cool.
I
Aha.
recently started playing this game again. I had played through like the intro, so this will motivate me to actually get into it a little bit more. I've
All
been
right.
super into the Owlcat RPGs, so
Very cool. I can hop in next with a game that I think kind of falls in a similar place to me as Homestead, but in a very different way. Despite me actually really liking it, I do think it's very fun. I picked Atlas Fallen for a game to play. I bought this game when it launched and had a great time with it. So I'm one of the few people that actually bought a copy of this and played it at launch. And I had a really good time. I generally, I'm going to say the name wrong again because it's that developer that has like 3 other developers that are called almost the same name. Deck 13. Deck 13 games I tend to really like. I think a lot of their stuff is really fun. I think Atlas Fallen, when it launched, suffered from being launched near a bunch of other really, really high budget stuff. And having a much lower budget, obviously, by comparison. It almost kind of like in a similar way to The Surge, which is their other big franchise. Although I think The Surge games found a pretty big audience with the second one. Atlas Fallen just kind of continued to fall under the wayside, I think. And
How ironic.
I wanted people to play it because I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot of fun bits here. I think it's almost Monster Hunter-y and how you're fighting big monsters, but it's way more action heavy, like immediate
it's the
action.
Most Monster Hunter-y I can stand in a game, but it makes me like it.
Yeah, it's very, you like sand surf around, basically unlocking the powers of a crazy gauntlet that lets you summon weapons.
Oh, yeah, sand
and do cool
surfing
stuff.
was fun.
Yeah, the combat felt really nice and chunky. I want to continue playing this with you sometime because the multiplayer was fun as well.
Yeah, Alex and I played a ton of this in
combo
2-player multiplayer, which is the maximum amount of players you can do, and it was really fun. I think the 2-player multiplayer is probably the best way to play the game.
I want to find out, and I really hope that the gauntlet doesn't turn out to be the secret bad guy at the end.
So okay, there was this little feeling in the back of my brain when I started playing this.
Yeah.
And maybe Ryan knows where I'm going with this. And I don't mean this in a negative way. It's gonna sound negative, but it's not.
I wonder if you're gonna say something that I said exactly to Alex while we were playing it.
This feels like a 7th generation console game. This feels like something from like the Xbox 360, and
This
I mean
is
that
exactly what I was thinking.
and I mean that in such a good way. There is a old school charm to this, particularly in presentation, that I actually fell in love with.
Well, I just love it. It
Hey,
feels
Ryan,
like
was that
Darksiders
word for
to me.
word?
Almost. I was actually thinking of another thing before you said it, but I think it's for this very much same reasons. I thought you were gonna say it reminded you of Forspoken. Because I also
okay. If Forspoken was made in that era,
Okay, you have a magical
That's what I thought you were
thing
gonna
on
lead
your arm
into.
that's talking to you.
Because it's
And
got
you
the
can
cuff,
kinda
it's got the sand surfing, it's got all the
But
movement
we're
stuff.
already up. But
Yeah.
we're already doing better than Forspoken because one, the character is enjoying being in the game, and 2, there's more than one environment.
Yeah, and also there's a pretty big set of things that happen with this game. They basically redid all the voice acting of the early part of the game earlier this year. And added in, so the main voice actors that you hear now are not the main voice actors of the characters at the start.
That's kind of wild.
Which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I am pretty happy, but I don't actually think the voice acting at the start was bad at all. I think it was pretty good, but Ben Starr is a shot of dopamine in my veins whenever I hear his voice.
Who does he play in
And
this?
he plays the main character. If you're a male main character, you're Ben Starr.
Oh, see, I played as a female character.
Same
so
here.
I didn't catch that.
I had to get
But when
the
Ryan
sweet
and I-
dulcet
told me
tones
that
of
Ben
Ben
Starr voiced the male character. I would have picked it, Ryan.
When Ryan and I were doing co-op, because your main character speaks, because they wouldn't hire Ben Starr if he didn't speak. But if you're doing co-op, your 2 characters will trade off lines with the gauntlet. So it's very, it feels like it's very inclusive.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
really cool. It's got it's really well built for co-op. It worked pretty seamlessly. I don't think Alex and I ever had a problem, which is impressive considering I was playing it on Steam and he was playing it on Game Pass too. So we were not even on the same storefront. And yeah, it worked really well. I think this is also one of those games that gets dramatically better after you're into it for a little while. I think there's a kind of a turning point where they stop dragging you directly to the first town and let you actually kind of explore a bit. Where
I will say
feels a lot better.
At first too, when I was like, this feels like a PS3 game, I was kind of like, this feels like a PS3 game. Eventually I got to the point where I was like, hey, you know what? This feels like a PS3 game.
I mean, that's exactly what I
wins you
mean.
over with its scrappy old school charm.
But yeah, Atlas Fallen is just a really interesting game. This is another one that I have yet to finish again. I intended to keep playing this once we were done. And then Avowed
More
and
stuff
Kingdom Come
popped up,
Deliverance 2
yeah.
and Monster Hunter have come out.
And
So
soon Pirate Yakuza.
Pirate Yakuza is already out. I'm just accepting that
Oh.
that's in the. I'm not going to get to that for a while. As much as I want to play that game, I think I can sit on that until I finish Infinite Wealth. But yeah, Atlas Fallen I do think is just like, it feels unlike most other modern action games, and I mean that in both a good and bad way. Like I think this definitely feels like a 360 gen thing. In my mind, that is a good thing, because I like video games that feel like video games, and this is a video game that feels like a video game. But some
I don't know
people
if
I
this
think
one
won't
was
love that as much.
Hey, good point.
super for me. I'm not sure I'll return to it, but I do like it a lot more than some other recent similar games.
Yeah. I think there's too
And
many things coming out that are
Name them.
holding
Let's
my
upset some people.
attention right now. But I've never seen a melee combat system quite like this one. It's very, and maybe there are others like it. I just haven't experienced them before. But it's like I said, it's I haven't really seen anything like it before. It's fascinating.
This treats your
different.
combo energy like Flintlock treats XP.
Well, because it all seemed kind of standard at first, and then when they say, "Oh yeah, as your momentum or as your like your rage or whatever other video game equivalent, as your momentum increases, the your enemies also become more like powerful," which I thought was fascinating. And I feel like I'm at a point in the game where I don't really see that materialize in any way, but it's a very interesting idea. And I just like the idea that your move set kind of opens up and becomes more available during a fight, so it feels like there's a kind of progression to each fight, which I thought was a very interesting.
Yeah, because it kind of almost
idea.
has like a rhythm to it where you end up building towards a big crescendo with your like massive set of attacks and your level 3 stuff when you get to them.
I've noticed that a lot more with bosses because they stay alive for longer.
Yeah, the smaller fights are over too quickly for you to really get into the third tier, from what I found. But this is also a game that I think like generally just reminds me a lot of the older Prince of Persia games, which for me is a very
it's
good
been a
thing.
while, but yeah.
Less specifically movement focused, but
you got your magic of taking things out of the sand. You're going around, flipping.
The vibe is there. The vibe is similar.
Yeah.
It's like a Prince of Persia if Prince of Persia was Darksiders.
To focus on the combat for a sec too. It was like right from the get go a lot smoother than some really similar combat styles I've played too. It's not kind of out of the ordinary, like lock on target, spam the buttons kind of combo combat. But I don't know, I felt that I was having an easier time maintaining targets correctly and like hitting things, where some games I've played, especially of sort of like the double A quality, have felt a little bit either too loose or too narrow onto like locking onto stuff.
I will say they really want you to pay attention to the different indicators for like dodging enemies or parrying them, but those like red blinking indicators can get very lost in all of the different particle effects.
A lot of like sand particle effects going around, and your own VFX get pretty crazy too.
And they look nice, but in terms of readability, it does make things a lot more difficult when you can't read like incoming attacks and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that definitely was something I struggled seeing too.
It's also specific monsters too. There's like, I think the one specific like sand wormy monster is a little hard to deal with at first because it kind of.
Oh, are you talking about the one where wait, the one at the beginning or the one where it had those shields, like those 8 shields around it that we had to break?
Both of them. I think actually fit this. I was talking about the one at the beginning, but you bring up a good point with the other one. Is that there's this little like wormy monster that's like one of the first ones you fight. But it's really hard to read like when its attack is happening, because you get like the animation that tells you when to like counter it and whatnot. But when that animation pops up and you see the like red flash, that's not necessarily the timing you need. You actually need to like wait a second for it to attack you. and that one's a little awkward in particular because it's just like a weird shape to communicate what it's doing. So I found that one a little hard to deal with, whereas a lot of the others were much easier. Like the big crab enemy is very easy to handle.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's super minor stuff, and I think in general this is just a game that I do want to get further into at some point. They do some
I'll
really
have to
cool
hold you
stuff,
to it.
as Alex brought up with the other monster, which is like this other wormy tripod-looking thing that you can find in the desert that does like Final Fantasy raid attacks. Basically,
Yeah.
and it sends like waves across an arena, and you have to like go around the edge of this combat space and like break all of its like energy orbs to be able to kill it, and then you just go over and it dies in one hit after that. I really thought that was super cool. I think that's a really fun fight, but it is definitely like a really big mind shift from the rest of what you're doing.
It took you pointing it out for me to realize that's what it was, because
And
I
I
just
only
thought,
got
oh
that
crap,
because
this
I'm
is
a MMO
an
player.
insta-kill thing.
Yeah, like it was 100% an MMO like telegraphed attack thing, which I really like, but I do think was an odd placement for it in this game. Yeah. Curious, anyone else going to continue playing this or have other thoughts on Atlas Fallen?
Maybe when all the games coming out this year calm down a little bit. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a lot on my plate that I'm trying to do right
We got to
now,
get to like
especially
the
with
summer lull. That'll be the
Yeah.
time
especially
period.
with like Steam Next Fest demos. I've got this giant
Oh
stack
my
of
God, that's
demos
right.
that I want to get through.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's good, and I do want to get back to it, but not right away, just because there's so many other things that are kind of.
Yeah, that's
I
about how
can't wait
I
for
am
us to
with
talk
it.
about our next fest demo experiences. I have some thoughts. I've
Hey,
picked a few that were
come back next
interesting.
week and you'll hear us talking about some next fest demos.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I think generally thoughts on Atlas Fallen. I do think this is definitely, if you want like a PS3 style action game and you have Game Pass, just play it. I do think this is absolutely like, for some people this will be the game that they want to play for sure. But I do think it's going to be pretty specific. Like if you're not into this era of games, I say era, this is a very recent game, but it feels like it's in that era of games.
But it's evocative of.
Yeah,
You
it
may
almost
not love
reminds
it,
me of
you know.
like God of War in some ways.
Totally, like the original God of Wars, not the
that-
newer ones. Yeah, absolutely. All right, my next Game Pass game is a game that I think is kind of falling in a similar position this year.
I think I know what it is.
I hope not. I hope it's doing better because I really like it so far. Eternal Strands.
Oh. Okay,
I
I'll
think
use
this
my
is a
backup.
really, really fun game. I'm excited for everyone to play it. And please, please, please play enough to get to the massive Titan fights and not just the bit where you're
yeah.
fighting small monsters, because that's the bad part. And it's not very far in, but make sure you get to where you fight the big dudes, because that's the important part. All right. Alex, you want to explain the
Alright.
fresh hellscape that you introduced us to?
So I had us play a fun little game called Golf with Your Friends. And when I say fun, that could be objective. And when I say with your friends, I mean not for long.
Good way of putting
Oh
it.
boy.
This is one of
Someone's
those weird
leaving
ones
the
where like
podcast
this
you don't
episode.
really
It is.
have to explain what the game is.
It's golf with your
Guys.
friends. It's specifically mini golf, and
Yeah.
they have some crazy courses, which I'll be the first to admit I was not to humble brag. I was wrecking house on the
Alex
regular
was
mini golf
dumpstering
course.
us. Like proper
Oh, yeah.
dumpstering in the
And then
first
the-
one.
That was an episode, right? We recorded
And-
it.
Yeah, we recorded
No.
that.
Wait, we
Okay.
recorded the
No,
first
you
one?
still dumpstered us for one round. Because you and I
Yeah,
played
yeah.
like a practice round beforehand, which we didn't record, but then we did like the whole actual round. And that one we recorded 3 of them, so those are up.
And then
you can watch them.
Every other course, I was completely. I think the big downturn for me was the jetpacks on the Worms course.
Which was the
See, that's
best
where I-
gimmick in the whole
there are
game.
Yeah.
there are themed. So I'm gonna. Well, I was gonna argue against that, but you're still right. There is a I've been playing some more courses since I did the museum one, and there are like certain goals you have to go through to be able to bring objects back through time to be able to like there's an invisible bridge that you can only
That's
go
kind of
on
sick
Very
as hell.
cool.
if you but it's there's so many like fun gimmicks for each of I going back with a calmer mindset, there are so many fun gimmicks in each course.
Look, the space
you're in
levels
the-
really made us lose ourselves at the end of the
when you're in
recording
the
session.
heat,
Yeah.
when you're in the heat of a golf battle against with your friends, um, we all do things in the heat of passion.
Like, I'll just say that
My
I think it's one of the
computer
better
likes to
recordings we've
crash,
ever
too.
done. So, and it crashed midway through, and Alex had to not begin the final thing.
So let's
Yeah.
just throw this out there, right? We were just talking about how stressful Aliens Dark Descent can be. There have been very few things in my life that has put gray hairs on my head more than playing this godforsaken game with you people.
I swear to Christ, there are some holes that are designed for dudes like, okay, if you don't get this the first time, every other time you try it is gonna be horrible. You're gonna take that 14-stroke penalty, okay? Okay.
Yeah, that happened a few times to
Yeah.
all of us, I think.
Yep, multiple times even.
Yep.
There was definitely, I don't know, I really liked some of the gimmicks and stuff, but there was occasionally spots where you would just get stuck, and it's like, I just, for whatever reason, I cannot get over this little hump, this around this corner. I just like cannot get an angle on it. I keep getting reflected back to this
It is-
god awful spot.
It is the kind of game where you enjoy it, but then every now and then it just has a moment that makes you go, "Okay, come on."
Yeah.
Oh
This
god,
one-
when you're trying to avoid a ledge so much, and your balls just keep scrolling and just keeps scrolling, and it looks like it's about to stop, and then it just goes back over the ledge again, and you have to start from the beginning of the goddamn
That's
hole.
when I feel truly alive.
Yeah, I had a ton of fun with this, but like if you had said we're playing one more course, I would have cried.
We would have had a heart attack. I think collectively all of us would
Oh
have
my
just keeled
God.
over and died.
I think that's the most I've peaked my mic in a recording too.
yeah, it's
Oh,
very similar to something like Bopple, which we've also played on the show before, which is a great game. It gave me that same feeling, which is like, this is very, very fun to play with friends. I can't do this for very long. Or I'm going to both lose my voice and my ability to think coherent thoughts. Which is crazy with a golf game. I didn't think that was possible. But
Oh,
truly was close to
time.
losing my mind. Partway through this game. Which I'll say, I think this is just a glowing recommendation.
oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how we
Oh,
all
yeah, it's-
avoided playing golf with your friends for this long, but
I also
we
feel
did.
it was
like-
crazy. I can't believe we haven't either.
Like it worked seamlessly in terms of like online mechanics and whatnot, which is really the only place that a game like this could fail.
Aside from
I
us
am
not
very
being able to
happy
get
too
Alex
that
back
I
in.
was the one
Crashed.
that I was the one hosting, and my thing crashed
Yes.
and died, but you guys were still all stable throughout
yeah.
the entire rest of that
Look
course.
up this in, and I think we would have been able to get you back had you not been hosting. I think because you were the host, it broke the lobby a little bit, but
Yeah.
Well, there were other things breaking the lobby psychologically, but that was the thing
we
that
were all a
broke
little bit broken at that
technically.
point.
By the
When
time
you-
when
when you get to
it was the
back
space
out-
station we did last, right?
Yeah, I really like this PlayStation, the space station courses.
There you go.
But definitely when you crashed
Oops.
and were just watching, there was like a couple of holes there where a part of me was like, it could have been me.
I was
could have
watching.
been done.
I was watching your stream. I was rooting for you.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
I'm getting lightheaded again. Just
I do like
trying
just-
to remember it.
To actually drill into the game design of golf with your
Right,
friends. It's really simple to control, which is really great. Like, it's literally just like left and right clicking with your mouse. It's very easy to do. But there's tons of like customization stuff too, which is cool that you like unlock after playing, as you get customization options to make your ball look weird. You also
So I
have
had-
tons of like different maps that can be really, really
yeah, different
different in how
maps.
cool they are.
DLC as well. There's different balls you can use. Like you can use a hockey puck. There are soccer balls or bouncy or
Yeah.
balls that are more bouncy. There's an egg that is just incredibly painful if you really want to torture yourself because of the irregular rolling.
Yeah, yikes. I do have one singular complaint about the game, the way the game controls.
Yeah.
And that is that once or twice I like micro clicked on my mouse, just a little incidental. I was moving it and I just hit a little, just a little click. And it
I did do
registered
that once
no
or twice
power.
as well.
My ball did not move, but it counted for a stroke.
I did that too.
I
Yep.
I've done
Yep.
that in real life. I've done a little oopsie putt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
But it was like, in real life, I feel a little bit more like, oh, that was completely my fault. Where in this case, I was like, come on, I didn't even like hardly move it was like part of my hand movement here. And like, if the game didn't recognize it enough to move the ball at all, it shouldn't count for a stroke.
Hmm.
We should all meet up in person sometime where there's a mini golf course.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
our next
God.
video.
Can you even imagine? We all just end up
We're all
just
vlogging.
angrily staring at each other. Just your turn, Alex.
Me being AFK in real life. Oh, whoops, I forgot.
We're all
Yeah,
just
we just-
getting like we're all just getting like trauma flashbacks. We like hit it. We just go,
No, we all just
Ooh.
play it like golf with your friends, and we're hitting it at the same time and not going one by one.
Yeah. Hey, we
we
can't.
piss off
Oh, we
everyone
also
else on
played
the
golf with
course.
friends. There's an option that it starts by default. It's collision off. We played with collision on.
Of course,
That
that's
felt
felt like
more
the
fun
better
than
Because
option.
how else are you gonna? Yeah.
We maybe would have saved our sanity the other way.
Maybe a little bit.
I didn't feel like it came up all that often.
Yeah, I
A
give it
couple
once or
of
twice.
times, of course.
A couple of times one of you would launch right before me, and I'd be higher powered, and both of us would go nowhere.
Oh my
Yeah.
Because of it,
God.
but-
It's the worst. It's the worst.
But at the same time, I'd love that happened. So yeah, I don't know. I thought golf with your friends was really fun. I probably am just gonna keep this installed and plink away at some levels when I have the
Yeah.
time. Because this is just a very fun like one-off game. I think to just play through some bits. Very fun, even fun alone. I would imagine. I think by far this absolutely shines in co-op, but I think the levels themselves are pretty cool, and you could definitely have some fun just trying to figure out the best way to get like holes in ones on each course. So
Oh yeah, because I think almost all of them, if not every one of them, has a secret like super cool way to get a hole in one.
yeah.
Yeah, don't. I think there was almost every course that I saw. I was like, oh, over there's the way. If you hit it just right, it's a hole in one.
Right. Anyone else planning on continuing to play golf with your friends?
Definitely
here's the
on and
thing.
off. I
It's
wonder
such a-
if we'll
it's
be able
such
to
a
get ourselves
small-
together again.
It's such a small install size that like if someone was like, "Why we're playing golfing with friends? Do you want in?" And then I can just download it in like 15 seconds, and I'm like, "All
Yeah,
right,
yeah. Good
when
to
do
go.
we start?"
Got to mentally prepare yourself.
Yeah.
Get some chamomile tea.
Time to
Me
golf.
mentally preparing to like play this game will take much longer than actually installing the game.
Yep.
Ah.
All right. Well, that's golf with your friends. I think pretty glowing review. All things
yeah.
considered.
It's one of those like I fucking hate this game 10 out of 10 kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All
It's
right.
exactly what they want it to be.
Oh,
Oh, for sure. Alex, what is your next game pick for Game Pass?
As I say this title, I want you to, because I don't have my camera on, I want you to imagine me putting a giant pair of aviator glasses on my face as I say this. It's time for Clone Drone in the Danger Zone.
Okay. Okay. This is actually a game I've been curious about for a long time. I did not even know it was on Game Pass.
It looks wonky, and I'm interested. But also, I like beating voxels to bits.
You might have chosen
I'm
another
intrigued.
golf with your friends tier game, Alex.
Oh
fucking
no!
Christ, I can't do this again. I can't do this again.
This one multiplayer. Yeah, it looks.
Yep. Yep.
Oh god.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
All right. Well, that'll be a good weekend at some point. Okay. Well, that's our next selection of Game Pass games. I'll also add, I think all of us are playing Avowed at various paces. We'll probably
Yeah.
talk
Yep.
about that either on the
Yep.
next Game Pass episode or just in general on the podcast. Us not picking Avowed is not because we're not playing it. It's because all of us are already playing it. I don't want to make us playing them already playing.
Preaching to the choir type thing.
Yeah.
I'm really liking it so far, but
Yeah.
we'll probably talk about it more in the future.
All right.
I'm enjoying it, and then there are pangs.
Okay. Well, that's the end of the show, which means, as always, we must do shout-outs and shout out something that we liked, didn't like, whatever, of the week. Who's got one ready to go?
I got one
I-
ready to go. Oh no, go for it, Alex. Go.
I
No,
defer to you.
no, go for it.
I don't have anything as crazy as Mega Man as a dentist this week, but I went out kind of by coincidence to my local comic and hobby shop on Pokemon Day, and they were like, "You want to buy a pack of Pokemon? You get a fancy card," which of course is now not in front of me. Oh, and I don't know, that little hit of opening a pack has made me
Get
want
that
to play
fresh
Pokemon
card
again.
smell.
So I'm
Yeah.
over here. I've got a deck in progress here that I'm working on, and hopefully tomorrow I'm going to go play some. This is, of course, is not. Where's my camera? It's over here. Not a full
Ooh.
deck, so I'm borrowing a deck, but I haven't played in a long time, so looking forward to
Getting ready to poke us some
playing a little
mons.
bit more.
Yeah,
Very good.
Shout out to so my I had a group of people. We were trying to figure out what to play because it was like Sunday morning after we had a party and we were kind of pooped out and we were like, what do we do? Like we were a little sleepy. And then I remembered I had my Switch with me and I had a copy of Trine on it. And I was like, let's play Trine. Man, that game is so much fun. That is a 2009 classic. Talk about seventh generation
The new
consoles. That
Trines too
game.
are also really good.
I've heard the third one is not great, but
There's one that's not good. I don't know if it's 3 or 4. One of them's not good.
I think it's
but
3, because 3 tried for this like full 3D thing, and apparently it did not go over very well, and it's very short. But I think with almost any of the Trine games, you can't go wrong. There's so much fun, like multiplayer or single player, like 2.5D puzzle platformer, action platformer thing, and it's just the absolute boneheaded shenanigans that you can get up to in that game is a lot of fun, and they often go on sale. So if you're looking for a fun platformer, maybe one to play with some friends or a significant other, definitely check it out. It is very, very cool.
very good. All right, Alex, you got something?
I do. Shout out to the texturing program 3D Coat. Because it is, I believe, what was the terminology used for it? It is rent to own software. You pay a subscription for 6 months, and then you don't pay for it anymore. You own it. No more subscription paying, which I crave with a frothing mouth in this day and age. I hate having to constantly subscribe to things. I love, love, love this capitalist hellscape we're in.
How fun. All right. Alex, you've inspired me. Not the Alex that just went, the one that went before him. Sorry, that sounded a lot meaner than I intended it to.
Get fucked, Alex. I don't know.
Wrong one.
You
Get out of here.
You mentioned Pokemon cards, which means I now have to pull out the oddity that I got over the weekend, which is Hatsune Miku magic cards.
Oh, hell yeah.
There's like a whole couple set of them.
Is there enough to make a full deck out of her?
No, absolutely not. There's like a few, which makes it even funnier, because that means you're going to pull out like a normal deck of magic, and occasionally there'll just be a Miku.
Hatsune Magic the Gathering.
in that thing, and you get all the little Miku. And the art is really good. They're all like foiled up and everything. Very cool thing, which is a very wild thing to see just like done as a product, is magic cards, but it's Miku. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I just like the Mikuisms, and I'm not a Vocaloid head at all, but you know,
Are those hollow too?
yeah, they're foiled.
If there's a Jeff Goldblum card out there, why not a Miku card?
Yeah, that's one of the secret layer magic things. They do some crazy stuff sometimes, but they're very fun. I think they're a neat little oddity. That's it. That's the show. We did it. I hope everyone's satisfied and got their money's worth.
Oh,
Wait, people are paying for
the
this?
money that you
Where's my
didn't
share?
pay to watch
No.
this.
We'll see you next week for Next Fest demos.
Do you think we'll ever be the same again? after playing golf with your friends?
I'm never the same
No.
again after any moment in time ever.
Damn, man.